Two tails, one head, yin yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. It's the trigram Qian heaven. Three tails, old yin. Three heads, old yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. the bottom trigram again for our, well, both hexagrams really, is solid, 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 which is Qian heaven. Qian is suprahuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change in what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. Our top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, solid. I believe this is, Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants. Whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Xun, wind or wood above Qian heaven gives us the hexagram 9. Our changing lines 4 and 5 will transform from their old versions. So old yin and old yang will transform to young yang and young yin, which will give us outer trigram or top trigram of solid, broken, solid. This is Li, fire and light. Li is fire and light, both inner and outer. As an inner light, she is consciousness at its most lucid and unclouded, holding things together in the mind, perceiving their differences and connections, and discerning the underlying patterns of relationship. And as well as vision, Li is the light that makes things visible, the power to cast light on things, spreading clarity and the awareness of order. Li is the middle daughter, living in the south, the region of midsummer and the burning sun. Li, fire and light above Qian heaven give us the hexagram 14. We will get the titles to our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Hexagram 9, our primary hexagram, he calls nurturance by the small. Nurturing inner strength by outward submissiveness, being firm but not impetuous, growing through humility. And hexagram 14, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 14 is called Great Possession, mutual enhancement of strength and lucidity, continuous renewal, inward discipline. We will start by reading from Hilary Barrett's I-ming, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, which is a nice introductory I-ming commentary. Our primary hexagram 9, she calls small taming. Key questions: what small thing can I work on today? How can I cultivate a better terrain? Oracle: small taming, creating success. Dense clouds without rain come from my western altars. To tame is to restrain and also to accumulate and nurture. It's what the farmer does. Here, the small farmer cultivates the soil of his own small plot, hoping the offerings made at the western altars will bring rain. The Zhao people, like the clouds, came from the west. Before they were ready to receive the mandate of heaven and bring about change, they prepared for many decades, cultivating their society like earth. So a time of small taming brings great hope for future growth and success. It's just that, at present, there is no rain, only clouds, and all they have brought so far is gloom. This means small restraint, the experience of small, frustrating setbacks and things that don't quite work yet. However, this also brings advice to cultivate the situation and yourself in small ways, developing your readiness and fitness just as a small farmer works the soil. You can't make things grow in a single gesture, and so you need self-restraint. You have to work steadily, responding conscientiously to the realities here at ground level, caring for the small details. Image: wind moves above heaven, small taming. A noble one cultivates the natural pattern of character. The wind moves above heaven. It doesn't yet bring rain to earth. It is directed by the inner creative force of heaven, naturally moving with it. Inwardly, there are unchanging principles. Outwardly, your actions gradually take on the shape of those inner principles. This is self-cultivation that aligns you with a creative power. It concentrates on growing potential rather than bringing about results. Sequence: small taming follows from hexagram 8, seeking union. Seeking union naturally has occasion to tame things, and so small taming follows. You have freely chosen where you belong and with whom, following your natural affinities. Now, if any of the potential you were drawn to is to be realized, you need to begin the detailed work. After the homesteader has entered virgin territory and chosen his own plot, he must get up next morning and every morning to work the soil, one weed at a time. Pair: small taming forms a pair with hexagram 10, treading. Small taming is solitary. Treading does not come to rest. Seeking to relate to the power that will make greater things possible, first you prepare alone and learn its nature. Then you develop the capacity to move with it constantly. And our supporting hexagram 14, Great Possession, Hilary Barrett calls, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. She also calls it Great Possession. Key questions: given all you have, who will you be? How can you affirm and support what is good? oracle, great possession from the source, creating success. Great possession means you are rich, maybe in material goods, maybe in less tangible assets like knowledge, wisdom, power, energy, talent, or relationships. Whatever form it takes, you have something real and potential in your possession. The Chinese word for possession also means there is, so this is great being as well as great having. What there is and what you are as well as what you have. The ancient form of the character shows an outstretched hand which may hold an offering. To possess is to offer. What you have is, by definition, what you can give. And what you have and can give is great. This is pure potential, an opening to the source and a promise of abundant energy ready to enter into circulation and become creatively active. Image. Fire dwells above heaven, great possession. A noble one ends hatred and spreads the good. She yields to heaven and rests in her mandate. The stars move in their courses in accordance with natural law. A noble one has an inner awareness of creative reality and carries this through into insight and clarity in living. The greatness of the cosmos is that it works as it should, and so her task is quite simple: to allow it to be, remove obstacles, and work with it. Hatred would only waste energy resisting reality. Spreading the good aligns with the natural order. The sun does not struggle to rise in the sky, it just rises. In the same way, because a noble one assents to what is and yields to heaven, she can rest in her work. Sequence. Great possession follows from Hexagram 13, people in harmony. Reaching out to people in harmony means beings truly return home, and so great possession follows. With harmony, beings come into their own right places. True relationships form, and a flow of exchange, of having and giving, is set in motion. Exchange is wealth, and so great possession follows. The emergent power of relationship, always greater than the sum of its parts. We'll now turn back to our changing lines of our primary hexagram, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Our changing lines were 4 and 5. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Changing line 5 has the general context, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. So, primary hexagram 9, small taming, changing line 4. There is truth and confidence. Blood departs, fear goes away. No mistake. The situation is genuinely frightening. You become indecisive, not sure whether what you're trying for is even possible. Here's the answer. Be true. Be confident. Confidence is an open channel that connects your small daily work directly with creative inspiration. Such powerful motivation leaves no room for negativity or anxiety. Be more present. Act with confidence, and the fear will go away by itself. And changing line 5. There's truth and confidence as a bond, rich in your neighbor. Truth and confidence create strong, harmonious bonds between people. These are true riches. Moreover, if there are things you want to achieve, or if you want to expand your capacity for growth, this can only be done through such bonds. We'll now see what I-ming has to say. In 1796, he wrote this as a Taoist adept, the I Ching, the Taoist I Ching, and it's quite alchemical in nature. Hexagram 9, he calls, again, Nurturance by the small. When we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle and we bring a question to it, the general context is always going to be, how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time? Nurturance by the small. Nurturance by the small is developmental. Dense clouds do not rain, proceeding from one's own western province. Explanation. Nurturance by the small is making the small one's nourishment. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is wind, submissive, below is heaven, strong. Being strong yet acting submissively, the submissiveness subdues the strength, and strength cannot act on its own. Therefore it is called nurturance by the small, which also means being held back by the small. This hexagram represents nurturing the great by the small. It follows on the previous hexagram, army. The path of the army is using yang to repel yin, for which it is important to first nourish the yang. When one is able to nourish the yang, then one keeps to oneself by the small. Full but not overflowing, firm but not aggressive, having yet appearing not to have, full yet seeming empty. The heart grows daily humbler, while the virtue grows daily higher. One can thereby gradually get to the realm of sages. This is why nurturance by the small is developmental. However, though nurturance by the small is developmental, if the smallness is excessive, this is doing things weakly, so that the path of firmness recedes from its proper place. The will is not robust, and one becomes feeble and ineffective. With the nurturance small, the development is small, so that the action is not far-reaching, and the great Tao is therefore hard to attain. This is like dense clouds not raining, proceeding from one's own western province. Yin energy coalesces as clouds, yang energy arrives as rain. As long as clouds do not rain, the yin energy is prevalent while the yang energy is weak, and the living potential is on the verge of cessation. That which is near in oneself is not even taken care of. So how could one seek that which is afar in the other? When one small empty voidness enters into quietism, how can one restore one's celestial original state? So one must know the process of nurturance by the small. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 14, great possession. In great possession are creation and development. Explanation. Great possession means greatness of possession. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is fire, luminous, and below is heaven, strong. Acting strongly with lucidity, producing understanding in the midst of strength, growing increasingly illumined as strength increases, growing increasingly strong as illumination increases. It is therefore called great possession. This hexagram represents wealth with daily renewal, governing the inward with strictness. It follows on the previous hexagram, obstruction. In obstruction, yin energy acts while yang energy retires. One accepts the false and loses the real, obstructing the openness of consciousness, becoming darker and darker daily until the original celestial virtues are completely gone. If you want to restore celestial qualities, producing something where there is nothing, it cannot be done but for the path of strength and illumination. What is strength? It is the moment of pure truth, adamantly strong and unbending. What is illumination? It is illumining myriad things with open consciousness undimmed. If one can be strong, the mind is firm and the will far-reaching, cultivating every appropriate path and establishing every virtue, having such wealth and abundance. If one can be lucid, one can discern principles clearly and thoroughly, seeing surely with real knowledge, taking to whatever is good, reforming every fault, being daily renewed. Once one is strong and lucid, one has inner autonomy and cannot be moved by anything. This is real true practice. It is like the sun being in the sky, its light shining on everything, covering everything. Nothing can deceive it. Yellow sprouts cover the earth. Golden flowers bloom throughout the world. Wherever one may walk, everywhere is the Tao. With the greatness of possession and the far range of action, nothing started fails to develop. We will go back and read our changing lines 4 and 5 to our primary hexagram 9, Nurturance by the small. They are our most focused part of the reading, and put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Changing line 5 has the general context, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Changing line 4 of hexagram 9, Nurturance by the small. Changing line 4. If there is truthfulness, blood goes and fear leaves, and there is no fault. Explanation. If one has no ability and is in the midst of those with ability, one will surely err with the result of sustaining bloody injury. But to be weak and yet find what is right, having confidence in one's own pure yang alone, is most injurious. Still, if one can borrow others' positive energy, be cautious and diligent, refine oneself and control the mind, then one can escape the harm of what originally would be harmful, and can wind up without fault where originally there would be fault. This is the nurturance of being small yet knowing the great. And changing line 5. There is truthfulness in companionship. Prosperity is shared with the neighbor. Explanation. The strength of yang proceeds docilely into the center of balance. Truth is in the center. Yin and yang are merged. The gold elixir crystallizes. This is having truthfulness in companionship. With truthfulness and companionship, the basis is stable. The country is peaceful. The basis of life is firm. One should hasten to transmute the nature of the temperament to return it to the essence of real knowledge. This is like shaping prosperity with the neighbor. This is the nurturance of being small, yet containing the great. We will also take a look at the commentary section in the back for each of our hexagrams. Hexagram 9, small nurturance, wind above, heaven below. Wind blowing up in the sky is small nurturance. Thus do superior people beautify cultured qualities. Small nurturance is smallness of development. Above is wind, below is heaven. This is wind blowing up in the sky. When wind blows on the earth, by its circulation of air to myriad beings, its nurturance is extensive. When it blows up in the sky, it can only relieve heat, so its nurturance is small. This is the image of small nurturance. What superior people see in this is that the science of fulfilling nature and comprehending life is the great work of appropriating yin and yang, taking over evolution, reversing the process of life and death, taking charge of the pivotal mechanism, It cannot be carried out by those who have not received a mental transmission of the science. But if great nurturance is impossible, then small nurturance is still called for, whereby to beautify cultured qualities. Beautification means adornment. Culture means the pattern of manners and conduct. Even though manners and conduct are not the great matter of cultivation of spiritual virtue, nevertheless, those who cultivate spiritual virtue should not slight manners and conduct. Examples of cultured qualities are being equanimous and agreeable in dealing with people, being respectful and serious in performing service, being thorough and precise in activity, being careful and prudent in speech, concealing one's strength and acting with flexibility, observing what has gone before and being mindful of consequences, being serene and unhurried. One will naturally not act in any way that is impetuous or causes loss of character. This is like the wind blowing in the sky, relieving the heat. When one cultivates one character to the point where irascibility and impetuosity vanish, then one is capable of small nurturance and also capable of great nurturance. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 14, great possession. Fire above, heaven below. Fire is in the sky, great possession. Thus does the superior person stop evil and promote good, obeying heaven and accepting its order. Great possession means greatness of possession. Above is fire, below is heaven. This is fire in the sky. When the sun is in the sky, much is produced. The sun shines afar. Everything is under the sun in the sky. This is the image of great possession. What superior people see in this is that the nature of celestial order is one integral principle in which all that is good is ultimately assembled. This is basic great possession. But because of mixture with temporal conditioning, once cognitive consciousness comes into play, the primordial is damaged. From this point on, good and bad mix. Those with great possession come to have little possession, and those with little possession come to have nothing. Therefore, as soon as a bad thought arises, superior people immediately stop it. And as soon as a good thought arises, they promote it, obeying heaven and finding happiness in its order. If one cannot find happiness in the celestial order, it is because of not being able to obey heaven. Not obeying heaven is due to not being able to stop evil and promote good. If one can stop evil and promote good, eventually one will reach ultimate good without evil. With true sanity always present, one returns to the pristine state of completeness, which is the order of heaven. Then one goes from destitution to possession, from possession to greatness. Human life in the world has a mission, which alone is important. With this direction there is life. Without it there is death. If one cannot find happiness in this mission, this direction, this order, everything else is empty and false. That to which heaven directs humanity is only good. If one can find happiness in that command, then this is obeying heaven. Obeying heaven is the way to obey the command. Finding happiness in the celestial mandate is the way to find happiness in heaven. Having the direction of heaven is the greatest of possessions, but having the direction of heaven lies entirely in stopping evil and promoting good. Stopping evil and promoting good is illumination. Obeying heaven and finding happiness in its order is strength. Strength is the substance. Illumination is the function. Open awareness, unobscured, embraces myriad principles and responds to myriad things. Through clarification of the quality of illumination, one eventually reaches ultimate good, wholly integrated with the celestial design, nature and life stabilized. No possession is more substantial than this. No greatness is greater than this. No external possessions in the world can compare with it. We will also see what James Dekorne says in his Gnostic Book of Changes, which I've left links to in the description box below. He's a practitioner of the Tao himself. He leaves helpful editor's notes as well as quotes from things like the Kabbalah or Carl Jung. Our primary hexagram 9 he calls passive restraint. Other titles might be the taming power of the small, the symbol of small restraint, the lesser nourisher, taming the small powers, small accumulating, small harvest, small obstruction, nurturance by the small, restraint by the weak, restrained, minor restraint, the weak force, the force of the small, weak forces restrain strong forces. And a quote from D.F. Hook, the restraint is small, success follows. Overcoming something small which is poisoning or nagging, partially relieving a situation, influencing that which cannot change, that which one cannot change, judgment, leg. Passive restraint brings about progress and success. We see dense clouds, but no rain coming from our western borders. Blowfold, the lesser nourisher, success. Dense clouds giving forth no rain approach from the western outskirts. On the whole, this hexagram presages good for us. The wind blowing across the heavens does not have the nourishing virtues of rain, but it refreshes us and makes us feel better. Thus, if things are going reasonably well with us, we may expect an improvement, especially in the future when presumably the nourishing rain will fall. However, as lines 3 and 6 indicate, if we are in serious trouble, we must not expect much help from the rather mild good fortune that is blowing our way. The conception of something weak or yielding bringing great benefit has been greatly developed by the Taoists, who, as though they were familiar with judo, recognized the strength to be found in softness and the dangerous weakness sometimes occasioned by too much strength. The name of this hexagram, understood somewhat differently, may also be taken to mean that the time is propitious for undertaking additional activity or the care of the young. Super propitious. Lu, taming the small powers, success. Thick clouds come from the west, no rain. This situation symbolizes the preparation which precedes a new development. Ritzema/Karcher, small accumulating, growing, shrouding clouds, not raining, originating from my western suburbs. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of a variety of seemingly unconnected events and impulses. It emphasizes that retaining and hoarding these experiences through adapting to them is the adequate way to handle it. The image. Ritzema/Karcher, wind moving above heaven, small accumulating. A Chunsu or chief son or superior person uses highlighting the pattern to actualize Tao. To actualize Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, which is linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Blowfold, this hexagram symbolizes wind blowing across the sky. The superior man displays his scholarly accomplishments. Lu, the wind blows across the sky, symbolizing taming the small powers. The superior man improves his ability and virtue. Wu, the wind blows in the sky above. This is restraint of the small. Thus, the Chensi, or chief son or superior person, refines his splendorous virtue. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. In the 9th hexagram, the magnetic line takes her proper place, and all the lines above and below obey her, hence the name passive restraint. The figure is composed of the trigrams of strength plus flexibility. Dynamic lines occupy the central places, and their will is accomplished. This means progress and success. Dense clouds but no rain depict the advancing dynamic lines, but their source in the west shows that their beneficial influence has yet to be felt. Leg. The symbolism of the hexagram passive restraint is taken from the magnetic line in the fourth place, which holds all of the dynamic lines in restraint. This is because the fourth place is properly passive, magnetic, and the response of the other lines is therefore one of submission to her authority. The second sentence of the judgment indicates the time and place of King Wen, whose homeland was the western portion of China in the 12th century BC. Rain coming and moistening the ground causes the luxuriant growth of the natural world and symbolizes the blessings which flow from good government. Therefore, from the west, the hereditary territory of the legendary author of the I-ming, come the blessings which might enrich the whole kingdom. Here, however, they are somehow restrained. The dense clouds do not yet empty their stores. Zhang Tzu, Wang Fang, and other scholars say, in effect, dense clouds should give rain. That they exist without doing so shows the restraining influence of the hexagram at work. But the dynamic influence of the other lines still continues, and the rain will eventually fall. The wind moves in the sky and then ceases. It can restrain for a time, but not indefinitely. Cleary 1. Being strong yet acting submissively, the submissiveness subdues the strength, and strength cannot act on its own. The heart grows daily humbler, while the virtue grows daily higher. One can thereby gradually get to the realm of sages. This is why nurturance by the small is developmental. Cleary 2. When you encounter situations that obstruct you and bog you down, if you do not get resentful or bitter, but just nurture yourself to digest them, you will be successful. Indeed, events and situations that formerly obstructed you can become means of self-development. This is how you succeed. This line indicates the value of not grabbing for easy success and the value of long-term results. Wu, restraint of the small, means literally small accumulation or small restraint. Small is another name for yin. Small accumulation or small restraint can also mean accumulation or restraint of the yin. When there are clouds but no rain, it means that something has intervened and prevented the cycle from completion. The judgment simply means many factors can derail a potential success, and we should weigh them carefully before making a decision. Anthony, our influence is limited by the circumstances. We should avoid ambition to make progress, as this exerts a negative pressure on people. It also indicates that we do not yet trust our path of non-action or the power of truth to change the situation. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Power is accumulated by gently withholding its expression. The superior man transforms his insights into components of his conscious will, or he works on his outer conscious as opposed to inner unconscious awareness, or he lives his beliefs. Wilhelm's translation of the title of this hexagram is The Taming Power of the Small. I have substituted passive restraint as a phrase more compatible with contemporary English. The titles rendered by the other translators, in my opinion, do not convey the meaning of the hexagram. Lu's Taming the Small Powers even seems diametrically opposed to it, though it is obvious that the title has multiple meanings. In describing the action of the trigrams in this hexagram, Wilhelm conveys its essential meaning from lectures on the I-ming. The function of the wind is to tame creative forces, to accumulate these and to make them visible. It is exceedingly difficult to understand this relationship of forces because the power used here is not expressed with might, but it is the softest, gentlest force imaginable. Wind is the least visible of all phenomena, and this invisible wind is now needed to concentrate that which strives upward, the strongest of all phenomena. The unconscious acts and creates as it must, and we should submit to the surgings of its waves. Only in the peripheral region, in the small free zone of consciousness can work be taken up each day, and whatever needs refining can be refined. This is not superfluous work. Although this small zone of consciousness and freedom is only a thin rind, its contact with the forces of the unconscious is vigorous. Hence, that which is seemingly small and insignificant is, after all, the power that succeeds in taming chaos by means of steady work and perseverance. Lines 1 through 4 of the 9th hexagram show different forms of restraint during a time of building tension. The dark clouds are accumulating, and we know that eventually the rain will fall and the tension will be released. Rain always symbolizes a union between heaven and earth in the I-ming, which in turn means a synthesis of some sort. In the present instance, the synthesis is still building, and although the tension seems to demand action, we are counseled to remain still. The magnetic force must hold the overwhelming pressure of the dynamic forces in check. The 5th line depicts the focal point at which the forces are gathered, and the 6th line shows the restraint necessary to allow the new transformation to stabilize it. If we turn the hexagram over, we get cautious advance, which depicts a different situation in which very careful action is called for. In the present instance, however, no action is correct action. A quote from Gershom Scholem in Kabbalah: "Through the activity of divine providence, an abundance of blessing descends on the creatures, but this awakening of the power of providence is dependent on the deeds of created beings, on awakening from below." And we will turn to our supporting hexagram 14, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 14, James Dekorne calls wealth. Other titles might be possession in great measure, the symbol of great possession, sovereignty, great having, great possessing, the great possessor, great wealth, abundance, having what is great. A quote from D.F. Hook: "Often means things other than material possessions or achievement. Count your blessings, for they are many." Judgment, leg: "Wealth means great progress and success." Ritzema/Karcher: "Great possessing, spring growing." This hexagram describes your situation in terms of your relation to an overriding concern or central idea. It emphasizes that organizing all of your efforts around this idea is the adequate way to handle it. The image, leg: "Fire over heaven." The image of wealth. The superior man represses evil and nurtures virtue in accordance with the benevolent will of heaven. Wilhelm/Baines: "Fire in heaven above, the image of possession in great measure. Thus the superior man curbs evil and furthers good, and thereby obeys the benevolent will of heaven." Blofeld: "This hexagram symbolizes fire in the heavens. When the trigrams for heaven is above, whatever is below may be separated from it. When it is below, it indicates fusion or intermixture with what is above. The significance here is that the splendor of a very great man lights up the heavens. The superior man suppresses those who are evil and upholds the virtuous. Most gladly he accords with heaven and carries out its commands." Commentary, Confucius/Leg: "Wealth shows the magnetic line in the central ruler's place, and honored by the dynamic lines above and below. The figure is composed of the trigrams of strength and clarity. The central line of clarity responds to the central line of strength, eventuating in timely action. This indicates great progress and success." Leg: "Wealth means great havings and symbolizes a kingdom, family, or individual in a state of prosperity. The danger in such a position arises from the pride it is likely to engender. Here, however, everything is against that. The place of honor is occupied by a magnetic line so that the ruler will be humble, and all the dynamic lines will respond to her with sympathetic allegiance. The ruler's seat is in the central position of the trigram of clarity, and hence her strength is directed by intelligence, and all her actions are timely, like the seasons of heaven. Fire above the sky shines far, symbolizing the vastness of the territory of wealth. To develop virtue and repress evil is in accordance with the will of heaven, which has given to all men a nature fitted for goodness. Cleary 2. All states of being have this essence inherent in them and are indeed made of this essence. But all states other than that of complete enlightenment are out of harmony with this essence in some way. Buddhahood is when you accord with this essence. Wu. As the sun shines brightly high in the sky, both the good and the bad will be exposed. The responsibility of the Junsi, or chief son or superior person, is to discriminate between them. He acts in accordance with the nature of goodness, the will of heaven, to enrich his life. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. The greatest kind of wealth accrues from furthering the work. The superior man manages his forces in accordance with the goals of the work. Wealth is the inverse of the preceding figure, union of forces. If the 13th hexagram depicts a process of uniting, the 14th might be seen as the completion of that process. To have one's inner forces correctly united is indeed possession in great measure, which is the title that Wilhelm gives to this figure. It is emphasized in the image that this wealth must be administered in accordance with the benevolent will of heaven, which is to say, the principles of the work must always guide one's choices if one is not to lose equilibrium and become pauperized by illusion. A quote from Tao Te Ching: "The superior man considers a rich possession of moral principles to be honor, and peace in his person to be wealth." We'll also look at the changing lines 4 and 5 of our primary hexagram 9, Nurturance by the small. They put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context of the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And changing line 5 has the general context, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Changing line 4 of our primary hexagram 9, passive restraint, or nurturance by the small. Changing line 4. Leg. The fourth line, magnetic, shows its subject possessed of a sincerity. The danger of bloodshed is thereby averted, and her ground for apprehension dismissed. There will be no mistake. Wilhelm/Baines, if you are sincere, blood vanishes and fear gives way. No blame. Blofeld, owing to confidence, bloody and terrible deeds are avoided. No error. Lu, if you are forthright, bloodshed and fear vanish, no blame. Ritzema/Karcher, possessing conformity, blood departing, awe issuing forth, without fault. Possessing conformity is inner and outer are in accord. Confidence of the spirits has been captured. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, the subjects of the lines above agree in aim with her. Wilhelm/Baines, the one at the top agrees in attitude. Blofeld, the will of our superiors is identical with our own. Ritzema/Karcher, uniting purposes above indeed. Cleary 2, there is a consonance of will with on high. Wu, he shares a common goal with the person above. Leg. Line 4, the lone magnetic line surrounded by dynamic lines, might well expect wounds and feel apprehension in trying to restrain the others. But she is in her proper place and is the first line of the trigram of docile flexibility. She is said to have sincerity, and the dynamic lines are moved to sympathy and help, and there is no mistake. Notes and paraphrases. Sue, the man follows the path of righteous flexibility, thereby eliminating anxieties and averting the dangers of bloodshed. He is always mindful of the question, what if you are wrong? Wing, If you are honest and sincere, I have a rock that makes me think that. What if you are wrong? Kind of looks like a weird clown. Basically plays like the trickster role, I suppose, for me. But I love that question. Wing, if you are honest and sincere and influence others with the correct advice, you can avoid existing and terrible dangers. What? Fear and anxiety will give way only to truth, then no error will be made. Editor. Line 4 gives the symbolism of the hexagram its meaning. It is the passive strength of non-action, properly holding all dynamic impetus in check. A quote from Emmy Harding in Psychic Energy. As the individual takes up the situations and experiences of his life, step by step, from the very beginning, and brings before the bar of his adult consciousness the acts of his ignorant and unconscious former self, he finds himself obliged to take responsibility for certain acts, performed in ignorance, for which at the time he could not take responsibility. As he follows through this process of taking responsibility for his former unconsciousness, the actions that were at that earlier time outside of his control, completely autonomous, lost to the personality, are joined to consciousness. Something of himself that has been in possession of the dragon is redeemed, and that amount of the dragon's energy is captured for the individual's own use. James Dekorne breaks changing line 4 down into one possible succinct definition. A. The courage of your convictions will help you overcome a difficult situation. Sincere devotion to the work resolves all problems, weathers all storms. And changing line 5. Leg, the fifth line dynamic shows its subject possessed of sincerity and drawing others to unite with him. Rich in resources, he employs his neighbors in the same cause with himself. Wilhelm/Baines, if you are sincere and loyally attached, you are rich in your neighbor. Blofeld, confidence is like a cord to bind the hearts of others. With it, we enrich our neighbors. Lou, if you are sincere, you will be enriched by your neighbor. Ritzema/Karcher, possessing conformity, binding thus, affluence, using one's neighbor. Possessing conformity is inner and outer are in accord. Confidence of the spirits has been captured. Got that in changing line 4 too. Wu, association strengthens self-confidence. With wealth, he is capable of reaching out to help his neighbors. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, his sincerity draws others to unite with him. He does not use only his own rich resources. Wilhelm/Baines, you will not be alone in your riches. Blofeld, this implies not getting rich on your own. Ritzema/Karcher, not solitary affluence indeed. Clary 2, one does not enjoy blessings alone. Wu, he does not keep wealth for himself. Leg, line 5 occupies the central place and, because of his sincerity, converts lines 4 and 6 into helpful neighbors who offer their energy and resources to accomplish a common purpose. Notes and paraphrases. Sue, partners reinforce each other through loyalty. The man uses both his own resources and those of his neighbors to further their common cause. Wing, through a cooperative and loyal relationship with another, you increase your resources mutually. In this way, you can accomplish your aim. Editor, psychologically, this images an inner unity, a gathering of energy to address a worthy task. The key elements are the ego's devotion and ability to muster its forces. A quote from Emmy Harding in Psychic Energy. The term individuation means a becoming whole and therefore implies the necessity of reconciling the conscious and the unconscious parts of the psyche. In practice, the process involves 2 steps. The first is that of searching out and recognizing all the scattered parts of the psyche and bringing them together. The second is that of amalgamating and coordinating them, together with the energies that inhere in them, so that they will make a meaningful whole, a cosmos, not a chaos. James Dekorne breaks changing line 5 down into 3 possible succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A, pull yourself together and get to work. B, sincerity inspires cooperation. And C, a cooperative alliance. We will next get a randomly card drawn verse from the Tao Te Ching while I sum up the reading. Our primary hexagram 9, Nurturance by the small, had heaven beneath, good God, I'll take them. Heaven beneath wind or wood. Xun, wind or wood. So heaven is a supportive thing with strength, and it supports the flexible wind above it. And it means, in essence, that like a small farmer, right now would be the time to nurture growth in our crop that has a lot of potential, but that potential is pent up in the earth right now. And what we can do to attend to it, to make the potential fulfilled, is to keep on task and do the small things necessary, like weeding, things like that, that are needed in order to nurture growth, and not expecting immediate results, but investing in something so that eventually something great can come to pass. And then our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with your relationship to it all, is hexagram 14, Great Possession, which has heaven beneath fire and light. This has strength, heaven, beneath illumination, fire and light. So heaven is supporting illumination, and this is called Great Possession, which D.F. Hook mentioned in James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes at the beginning, that it didn't often have to do with wealth as far as money is concerned, per se, but in all manner of ways one could be wealthy. And in Great Possession, it shows something where the goal of the work almost is being fulfilled within, where the illumination is being fostered and cared for and nurtured and blossoming outward from inside. The changing lines 4 and 5, 4 showed that, sort of like in a situation where there could be violence, that they avoided bloodshed, essentially. I want to look at that. Where do I want to look at it at? Probably this one. I'll read the changing lines in Lu I-ming's Taoist I Ching. 4 and 5 here, of Nurturance by the small. 4 says, if there is truthfulness, blood goes and fear leaves, and there is no fault. Explanation, if one has no ability and is in the midst of those with ability, one will surely err, with the result of sustaining bloody injury. But to be weak and yet find what is right, having confidence in one's own pure yang alone, is most injurious. Still, if one can borrow others' positive energy, be cautious and diligent, refine oneself and control the mind, then one can escape the harm of what originally would be harmful, and can wind up without fault where originally there would be fault. This is the nurturance of being small yet knowing the great. So I get from that being weak is not something that you can always control. Often you're weak for whatever reason. Maybe you're ignorant of something that just takes time to learn, right? In that being the case, when you're surrounded by those that are great in comparison, you can borrow that if you are humble, essentially, and don't treat things like a competition, but sort of a community where the great of others can be borrowed to expand greatness within yourself, and vice versa. And then changing line 5, there's truthfulness in companionship. Prosperity is shared with the neighbor. So it's almost like you're borrowing strength in order to be able to contribute it yourself. Explanation in line 5 here. The strength of yang proceeds docilely into the center of balance. Truth is in the center. Yin and yang are merged. The gold elixir crystallizes. This is having truthfulness and companionship. With truthfulness and companionship, the basis is stable, the country is peaceful, the basis of life is firm. One should hasten to transmute the nature of the temperament to return it to the essence of real knowledge. This is like sharing prosperity with the neighbor. This is the nurturance of being small yet containing the great. And I also, just because James Dekorne is so great at synthesizing things and summing them up pretty well, I'll read his changing line stuff from our primary hexagram 9, Nurturance by the Small. He says of line 4, the courage of your convictions will help you overcome a difficult situation. Sincere devotion to the work resolves all problems, weathers all storms. And changing line 5, he says 3 possible succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A, pull yourself together and get to work. B, sincerity inspires cooperation. And C, a cooperative alliance. We will read verse 79 and 18 out of the Tao Te Ching. My copy is translated by Jia Fu Feng and Jane English. '79 of the Tao Te Ching. After a bitter quarrel, some resentment must remain. What can one do about it? Therefore the sage keeps his half of the bargain, but does not exact his due. A man of virtue performs his part, but a man without virtue requires others to fulfill their obligations. The Tao of heaven is impartial. It stays with good men all the time. And 18. When the great Tao is forgotten, kindness and morality arise. When wisdom and intelligence are born, the great pretense begins. When there is no peace within the family, filial piety and devotion arise. When the country is confused and in chaos, loyal ministers appear. Before I go, I wanted to say, in each of our changing lines, it said confidence of the spirits has been attained, which is unique. Usually, I rarely see that, so that's a very cool feature of this particular reading. Love y'all. Good night. Good morning.